Did you know more than 90% of you are not subscribed? Let's fix that. Those are rookie numbers. So if you've been around for a while, you know that 1, I am a massive fan of Star Wars, one of the biggest fans ever, but as well as whenever I cover Star Wars stuff on the channel, be it new shows or games or anything, I rank it not on a 10 out of 10 system like I do with my anime, but I put it on a tier list. That's because around this time last year, I made a video called Star Wars The Tier List, and that's pretty much what kicked off the entirety of me ranking stuff. But in that year, since covering it, there's been a lot of new Star Wars stuff, as well as my opinions on stuff has changed. Be it with the advent of new seasons, rewatching some movies, stuff has shifted around. And I figured, you know what, I'll make this a yearly occurrence, considering that May 25th is the anniversary of Star Wars. Because it was May 25th, 1977, when Episode 4, or just Star Wars, was first released in theaters. So I figured, let's return to the tier list. So of course, here's the tiers. It pretty much is True Jedi, S tier, A, B, C, D, F. We keep it fairly simple here. And of course, we have everything ranging from all the movies, the shows, and the 3 games. I'm not going so much in chronological order with this, because it's a bit confusing with some cases, so we're just going with movies, animated shows, live action shows, games. And this isn't going to be as long as the previous video because a lot of these, mainly with the movies, are more or less going to be the same. So let's just get started. Alright, Phantom Menace. It's more or less still the same. I think it's still middle of the road. At the end of the day, Liam Neeson, pod race, Duel of the Fates. It's the best parts of the movie. Attack of the Clones, it's mainly the last act of the movie that's the most tolerable. It's pretty boring for the most part, but it's still D tier for me. Revenge of the Sith, True Jedi still. It's the culmination of the prequels, especially since you go through all of Clone Wars, and then you get to Revenge of the Sith. It makes the punch of the ending so much more emotional. It's one of the best movies still. Despite the acting and whatnot still not being the best, the content in it more than makes up for it. Solo, I'm pretty sure I had this at B tier last time. It's sort of moved down for me. I've rewatched it, I think, once since then. But for me, I would put it down C tier-ish. Not the greatest, it's not horrible, it's just a meh movie. Rogue One, I personally would still put it at B tier. If you want to hear more of my in-depth thoughts about each of these, watch the video I made last year, because again, I am sort of just speeding this along. Rogue One, still B tier for me. It's a fine movie. I don't think it's the greatest thing like some people think. With Andor though, I think the movie has been made a lot better, just because I think you give more of a shit about casting Andor at the very least. But for me, it's still B tier. Original trilogy, episode 4, I think is A tier. It's still an amazing story, but just, compared to later stuff, Star Wars The Holiday Special. Need I say more? Empire Strikes Back, True Jedi, obviously. Best of the best of the original trilogies, and honestly, best of the best of all of the movies. Return of the Jedi. I know for some people, it's kind of a weak movie, but for me personally, I love Return of the Jedi. It's one of my favorites, and I think, it's still True Jedi for me. There's some iffy stuff here and there. For me, it's just a solid experience. It truly feels like the end of the story. Sequels. Force Awakens, yeah, middle of the road. It's the most tolerable of the sequels. Even though, again, it's just episode 4 reskinned, it's not the worst. It gets a lot worse after this, actually. Sound design, art direction, that's about it. Acting's fine. Stories, whatever. The Last Jedi. I still hold on to the fact that there is some redeeming qualities about it, like how it handles Luke, and that's about it. How it handles Luke in terms of him being a failed teacher. But other than that, it's still pretty close to the bottom for me. D tier. Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, watch my video last year where I went on a long rant about the Rise of Skywalker. The Rise of Skywalker only gets worse the more the years go on, honestly. The movie's been out for 4 years now. It's just so horrible. Alright, now let's get into the animated shows. Genndy Tartakovsky's Star Wars Clone Wars. Still pretty peak. Again, before we ever got even Revenge of the Sith, this was Clone Wars. Again, if you're a Star Wars fan, you've never watched the micro series Clone Wars, do yourself a favor. It's on Disney Plus. I have a lot of nostalgia for it. Not as much nostalgia for the Clone Wars, but, you know, I had the duo DVD set of part 1 and part 2, you know, and I would always watch it every once in a while. It's pretty fun. Music's great. Sound design's great. Top notch. Star Wars, The Clone Wars. Unlike Rise of Skywalker, which gets worse every year, Clone Wars, for me, gets better every year. Just rewatching episodes, whole seasons, arcs, stories, characters. Clone Wars is just peak, perfect animated television. Well, of course, I'll admit. Is it perfect? No. Do I have hella nostalgia for it? Of course. My glasses are very rose-tinted. But at the same time, it's just fucking good. Like, you just can't deny it. For a kid's cartoon, it's peak. What can I say? Tales of the Jedi. I don't remember where I put it. I put it at A tier last year. Yeah, I would keep it in A tier. I mean, for it being a shorts story, it was very good. Like, it made you feel and give a lot more of a shit about Count Dooku. It added some more fun stuff and emotional ties with Ahsoka. Just unfortunately, it just is so short. The shorts were too damn short, and I really hope that they do more of these. I hope there's more Tales of the Jedi, because there's a lot more that can be done. One thing is that they take that scene from that deleted episode of the Clone Wars where Obi-Wan and Anakin have that scene by the fire and they talk about Ahsoka and Anakin's like, I miss her. That would be a good shorts story that they could do and finally like canonize that, because that's a phenomenal scene. Star Wars The Bad Batch. Season 2 has come out since making the video last year. And I'm gonna be honest, Bad Batch has gone down a couple notches for me. I mean, Bad Batch already wasn't really anything special to me. It's like, yeah, that's some Clone Wars nostalgia and whatnot, and seeing some cool stories, you know, right after the fall of the Republic. For me, I would still put it at B tier, but it's more of a low B, high C. Season 2 was just so boring. There was legit 2 episodes that I gave a shit about. Or like 3, 4. And that was the 2 Crosshair episodes, as well as those 2 episodes that dealt with the Senator. But any Bad Batch centric episodes sucked. They were so boring. Spoiler alert, but the season ended with Tech dying, which I don't believe for a second, because it's Disney, and for some reason people give a shit about these characters, even though they're so one note and boring as fuck. It's so funny. When Tech died, I was so happy, because I was like, finally they're starting to kill these motherfuckers off. But again, I don't believe for a second that he's dead, unless I see these idiots getting shot in the head or stabbed in the heart. It's just bait so that when season 3 comes back, they'll be like, oh, is Tech alive? And it's like, yeah, no, of course he is. Star Wars Rebels. Still A tier for me. And now with the advent of Ahsoka around the corner, I think a lot more people are going to be giving Rebels the light of day, because I think a lot of people more or less have skipped out on Rebels, which is a mistake, because Rebels now has a lot of very integral lore and characters, like going into like Mandalorian and Ahsoka. If you don't know who they are, tough, because you're not going to know what the fuck is going on. Like, it's one of those shows where you either like it or you don't. For me, the characters grow on me. I revisit Rebels, not as often as Clone Wars, but the lightsaber fights are pretty fun. The characters, it's the Imperial era of the Clone Wars. Pretty emotional, and I look forward to seeing the continuation of Sabine, Ezra, Ahsoka, going into the Ahsoka show. Star Wars Resistance. Why does it exist? It's just one of those shows where it provides nothing to the story, just like the sequel trilogy as a whole. People are forgetting that it exists, and that's probably for the best. Star Wars Visions. I'm aware that there's a new season. I haven't watched it yet. And honestly, I don't know if I'm gonna watch it, because what hooked me about Visions was that the fact that it was a Star Wars anime. All the episodes of season 1 were entirely made by Japanese animators, but then going into this new season, there's only 1 episode that's made in Japan. Like, don't get me wrong, the concept of Visions is that all these directors outside of America have their vision for a Star Wars story, and this is their chance for it. I don't know, I'm just an anime nerd at the end of the day, so I'm just like, it must be anime only. I'll watch season 2 eventually. I need to rewatch season 1 as well, because it's been a while. I had put it at C tier last year, but it was a bit harsh. I'll put it at B tier. Like, it's forgettable. The animation, of course, is really good because 1, it's Disney, and 2, it's a short one-off thing. It's still fun, and I do recommend it. Star Wars: The Mandalorian. We, of course, have had season 3 since last year, and I am going to be honest. I had put Mandalorian at True Jedi last year, despite giving a fair amount of criticism against it. Season 3 has definitely brought it down a bit. I'm not going to be insanely harsh, though, because Season 1 is still really good, and Season 2 still has some amazing stuff in it as well. And Season 3 had its moments. I will still put it at A, but it is a low A. It's an A-. The Book of Boba Fett. The Book of Boba Fett did do wonders for my channel in the early days. Still one of the most viewed videos on my channel. But that is because The Book of Boba Fett, when you take out episodes 5 and 6, it's not good. I try so hard to give Book of Boba that chance just because I love Tamira Morrison. The music in Book of Boba is really good. I will say though, the flashback stuff of Boba in the desert learning from the Tusken Raiders, that's cool. But then when we flash forward to Boba trying to be the new ruler of Tatooine, it's really just boring at the end of the day. So there's a nice gap right there in D tier, and it can go right there. Obi-Wan Kenobi. I had also put Obi-Wan at B tier last year. That was just mainly because I was coming off the high of the finale. Now that we've had time to sit and stew on the Kenobi show, God, was that show horrible. So much potential. We were so excited for it for years, and it's so clear that this show would have worked much better as a movie. Of course, Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen coming in, giving it their all, because they're excited for it, and I'm happy for them that they got to return to Star Wars and everyone was able to welcome them with open arms. But the rest of everything else surrounding that was utter dog shit. The story was boring as fuck. It felt so cheaply made. At the end of the day, my biggest gripe with Obi-Wan Kenobi is like, this doesn't feel like a Disney Plus product. At least Book of Boba Fett felt that way. This felt like a fan film. I definitely recommend you check out the edit that someone's doing where they're redoing Obi-Wan Kenobi and they redid like the trailer and make it look, you know, the Inquisitors look accurate, adds more life to the show. But even so, I won't put it at F tier. It's not that low for me. The more I think about it, I enjoyed Book of Boba Fett more than Obi-Wan, so I'm doing that. It's like even the lightsaber fight at the end, shaky cam galore, and the music not being what it should have been. I forgot that John Williams was composing Obi-Wan Kenobi. If it didn't say music composed by John Williams, I wouldn't have known. Because it's like, why are we not just using Battle of Heroes or Duel of the Fates or Imperial March or any of the classic Star Wars themes? I don't know. It's dumb. Andor, praised very highly, not just by myself, but everyone as a whole. I still think it's the best Disney Plus original Star Wars thing that has been made. I put it at True Jedi when I reviewed it last year, and well, I still think that's the case. Even though obviously it doesn't deal with Jedi or anything like that, I still think it deserves to be up there because I think it's phenomenal. It's the perfect blend of espionage, drama, action, what you would least expect from Star Wars at this point. And I loved that change. I know for some people it was jarring, but for me, it was welcoming, especially coming off of these two dog shit shows. And I really look forward to seeing season 2. It looks like it's gonna be some goodness. And I also look forward to, when season 2's done, re-binging both season 1 and 2, and then watching Rogue One. And I think when we come back to this tier list next year, Rogue One is probably gonna get bumped up to A tier. On to the video games. Battlefront 2. Again, campaign. I put it at D tier last year. And more or less, it stays down there. Campaign, dog water. Multiplayer, fun, occasionally. You know, I still hop on every once in a while, only to play Republic. Let's be fair, you're only playing it so you can play either Clone Trooper or Separatist. If I'm playing on Hoth or something, then it's like, yeah, sure, let's play Empire or Rebels, but I don't even touch Resistance or First Order, because fuck that. The final two, Jedi Fallen Order. This is a weird one now, because obviously we have had Jedi Survivor, which I'll talk about in a minute. I have kind of revisited Fallen Order a little bit since playing Survivor, and man, Survivor just completely blows Fallen Order out of the water. Fallen Order is still a pretty good game, don't get me wrong, but just in terms of the scale, scope, and even just story of Fallen Order compared to Survivor, night and day, holy shit. So honestly, for right now, just because of how good Survivor is, I'm gonna knock Fallen Order down a peg. Like, it's still a really good game, don't get me wrong, but now going into Jedi Survivor, I'm just gonna do this right away. Aside from it, obviously, me doing the playthrough on the channel, this game was amazing. Obviously, not completely polished, you know, a lot of frame drops, crashing, and whatever. But for me, even though it's not as occasional as some people have had with the game, I look past it because the story, the gameplay, it is amazing. I definitely recommend it if you're at all a Star Wars fan. Play both Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor. I think you'd have fun playing both. But just going from Fallen Order to Survivor, Survivor just takes the gameplay of Fallen Order and just takes it up like a million notches. Like, same with the story. Like, it makes me look forward so much to whatever the third game's gonna be. Just like, how do you take it up even further from what Survivor's done? You're going to the realm of godhood at that level. It's peak gameplay, peak story, peak characters. The game looks amazing, and it's a game that I'm gonna be playing for the next couple months just because there's so much side content. Even once I finally 100% the entire game, I'm still probably gonna keep coming back to it just because the gameplay is that fun. I'll New Game Plus it. I will eventually do the Ogdo Bogdo challenge. For me, it has been the absolute peak of Star Wars gaming. Either way, this has been the revamped tier list for everything Star Wars. I'd say this about, yeah, feels right. I've been meaning to shift a lot of stuff around. I will leave the template for this new tier list down in the description below, so you can do it for yourself. Feel free to send it to me on the social media. Discuss with me down in the comments below. Believe me, I'm all for having fun and fair discussions about Star Wars. Just ask my friends. I can talk endlessly about this franchise. I can talk positively, neutrally, but more often than not, very negatively. But at the end of the day, I love it. This was this tier list for Star Wars stuff. Join me for many other videos, be they more tier lists, gameplay, reactions, reviews, anything and everything coming soon to you. So thank you all for joining me on this. I'm Lancer. Thanks for watching.